Hey everybody, welcome back. I've been showing little bits and pieces of this audio application I've been building. We've been focusing a lot on the code behind it, the audio code behind building this lit application. I've shown you a lot of demos, wrapping those demos up as reactive controllers so we can use them a lot easier in our application. I won't get into how this application is built, but I'll just show it to you right now. So here it is, be sharp. It is a pun. I want you to be sharp when you're practicing your music. It's also a little bit of a Simpsons callback, but, so, basically, this is very black and white. It's unstyled. We're gonna get to the style in a little bit, but check this out. So it's a practice application. I actually forgot I had a nice little mini keyboard here, mini keyboard controller, so I'm gonna use that for the MIDI piece of this. And we'll open up the options right now. MPK Mini 2, my MIDI controller, my MIDI reactor controller discovered this device, and it's already connected. So I'm gonna start pressing some buttons here. Look at that, there we go. And then of course, my microphone input. So we're gonna start, I'm gonna sing, ah! I hit an A. I'm glad I didn't hit a flat or a sharp that time. I'm glad I hit an A, even though I really only try to hit C's. So what this application really does is basically, let me turn off the microphone because I'm not so good at hitting my notes. I'm going to use the keyboard pretty solely on this one. So I'm going to start a quiz. It's asking me to play an F in any position. So I can play an F chord. So this keyboard is super tiny though, so it's hard to hit the keys right, but F. Yes, F, A, and C. And so it kind of does this animation at the end to show you what it's supposed to be. D sharp minor. I think I can hit this. Let's try it. Nope. I did the wrong thing. Oh well, that's why it's a quiz. So let's do this last thing of G sharp. Excellent. All right, let's stop this quiz. So let's try this live mode here. So this is where it counts for a specific amount of time, lets you just play around with a specific chord. So this is an F minor. So I can just doodle around here and play these notes, and it's gonna score me. So that's just a taste of what it is, but honestly, I think it would look a lot better if there was some style. I think when I do add style, I'm gonna bring some of the visual elements back because I kind of yanked it out to show you all. So let's work on some of that style. And I'm gonna focus really kind of on what Cassondra was talking about, how web components work, some of her general tips and pointers. So the first thing I wanna talk about is our index.html. I know there's not much here. You're just driving the main application component, the B Sharp app. But check this out, we have font family, font weight, font style. Now, if you're familiar with the Shadow DOM, you might be familiar with the concept of CSS or style encapsulation. So what this means is styles, they don't go into components, they don't leak out of components. Everything is encapsulated, so you don't have to worry about styles that you have in a component leaking out. So the question is, why do these font properties I have kind of work in every single part of the app? Now the difference here is that there are some CSS properties like font that just make their way through all your DOM, all of its children, and you can make this happen without actually specifying CSS rules. And so that's the key difference right here. And this is what I learned a long time ago when I was confused about all this stuff. CSS encapsulation through the Shadow DOM doesn't actually block styles. What it does is it blocks query selecting. So I can't query select things. I can't make CSS rules that go all the way through the DOM. That's blocked by the Shadow DOM. But just normal CSS properties that normally make their way through the normal DOM, they'll make their way through the Shadow DOM as well. This is why some properties like font can go all the way through your document and style everything unless you do a more specific selector that says otherwise. Now, as you've seen, most of this application is pretty much unstyled. There's not too much in the way of colors. It looks very black and white. You know, it's not making the application look good. That's for in a minute. But you know, what I've put in so far is just rules for layout, stuff to make sure things get in the right place, make the application look usable. And so I want to show you what I have to back up something that Cassondra was saying when we talked. Now, check out our main application CSS here, just as an example. You know, I've covered in other parts of web components in space. Look at this. There is not too much style here. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rules. And so this is one of the points that Cassondra was covering. Like, why do we need lesser Sass here, especially if we're building an application like this, a web component application, where each component only has a handful of rules like this? There's no real need to use BEM or any sort of nesting or anything like that when you only have 6 rules. And you'll find that a lot of other components in the application are like this. This one's a little bit longer in this flashcard one, but there's a lot of different things going on, including animation. But yeah, I mean, this one only has 4 rules. So I think she made a good point, and I really do like to keep a lot of extra front-end tooling out of this. Now, going back to our main application here, this is where you'll find a lot of components that I built myself that make up this application. And so we have the B# side panel, we have piano keys, which is not my component, but I pulled it in from NPM. We have a playback cue, we have a score. And so if you look at the CSS behind this, you'll see we're not even using classes to query this or IDs. We're just using the native tags, the native selectors for these tags. And right above this is an excellent point. I'm glad this happens to be right above this. I just have a div selector here. So I only maybe have one div in this app.html here, and that's the one div I want to style. And because our style is encapsulated like this, I don't have to worry about the style for this div just leaking out of this component and you know, affecting anything else. So yeah, we can use semantic markup like this, whether it's our components, whether it's just the div tag, whatever. Now, the other thing Cassondra mentioned was selecting things by ID rather than class. So you can see this right here. We can go into our app.html and look for our no mode header. So our no mode header is right there. I refer to it by ID. Now, I could easily have identical IDs throughout the rest of my application, and it wouldn't matter. Again, we're encapsulating things here in CSS, so I can have no mode header anywhere else I want outside of this component, and I could style it differently, wouldn't matter. It would easily work. Now I'm going to go over this flashcard CSS again, and you can see how I only sort of practice what I preach. I have a progress bar here, which I am selecting by ID. A bunch of stuff where I am selecting stuff by ID, but I get down below, I have a stats container. Yeah, maybe this should be an ID. Maybe it shouldn't be a class. Because remember, Cassondra was saying that it's more efficient to query things by ID than class. But again, going back to the semantic markup, we are styling the H1 tag, we are styling the input and the select tag. But again, we are protected. Style will not leak out. We're encapsulated with our shadow DOM. So this is one of the major things I love about using web components, is using this shadow DOM for exactly this. Keeping our components and our style really simple. Now, Cassondra mentioned one more thing that I am usually guilty of, but I'm not guilty of here. So I have a microphone setup panel, and in the past what I've done is I might use this hidden as an attribute rather than a class. And like Cassondra was saying, very bad. Do not use the hidden attribute or any other native to the browser attribute. So things can get real confusing real fast if you're using attributes that already exist in your browser and just making up ones that are exactly the same. So it can get messy. So here, normally I might do a hidden attribute, and that would be bad. I made it a class this time. I think I might have absorbed some of what Cassondra was saying, and I was like, I really want this to be hidden, but I don't want to use an attribute. So thanks, Cassondra. Now again, this is what our application looks like now. Very unstyled. You could use a lot more styling to, you know, make these buttons into drop downs. And how I did this is I made a little mini design system. And, you know, I think by the fact that you're seeing this unstyled first really does mean I did focus on the content first. So that was one of Cassondra's concerns when we were talking about, do you make a mini design system or don't you? It can complicate things in your application and detract from the main message or the usability features that you want in your application. So given that I'm seeing the usability features here first, maybe that's not so much of a concern for us. So I'm going to switch us over to the main branch in our repo, and we'll go over a little bit about how I set up a design system here. So in my components folder here, I have a style folder. And, you know, I only have a few different things I want to globally style for this application. Now, the first one is colors. So I really wanted to define, you know, a nice palette of colors that I could use everywhere in this application. I really made an effort not to use hex values anywhere except for here and make everything I need into CSS vars or CSS properties. So I have a palette of colors I can use everywhere I want. If I was missing some colors, I'd add it into here, but I'd be very careful about it. And I think this is also what Cassondra was getting into. Like, I am planning way too much here. Maybe I just maintain a list on paper. After all, it's not a design system I'm shipping. It's just a mini design system I'm using myself. So I might be putting too much thought into this when I could be just rapidly iterating on this application instead of paying so much attention to detail right here. Does it pay off? I don't know. It depends on your use, right? And I do have some type going for us as well. So I define a logo here. And again, I could easily put a logo. I think I only used the logo once. I put logo as a property of type right here. Why not just put the logo where I'm using the logo as opposed to making it part of the design system? These are the types of decisions you can hem and haw over, again, like Cassondra said, without worrying about how does my application actually function? How am I spending the time that I have to make this application the best it could be? But I do think this tiny text right here, I have tiny text throughout my application, and it's good to define it all in one place here. So I do like that aspect. And I also do have this panels CSS here. I have a number of panels, so it's good to have some common style that can go to these panels. I actually didn't end up with much style though, so arguably, maybe this wasn't necessary. The last one is buttons. And so I defined the look of a button all throughout the application. I think this is the most useful aspect of this mini design system I created because it can define a lot of these aspects of the button and use them everywhere. I have a lot of buttons in this application, so it is good. Now, Cassondra did say it was important to get okay with being important again. I still feel like I abused this in this application, and a lot of these aren't necessary. I think when initially making this little design system here, I was having a lot of CSS rule precedent orders that are no longer relevant. Some of them are, and I just went with important for a bunch of them. I am sure this is not what Cassondra meant, because I'm not even using the light DOM here, where she said it really is okay to use important there. I'm using it to cover up my own mistakes and my own lack of planning. So, you know, judge me how you want to judge me. So in the end, I think Cassondra had some great thoughts coming from, you know, working on her own projects, whether they be small apps or huge design systems that are used everywhere. I think she made a lot of great points that some of them I used in this application, some of them I didn't, some of them I went a little crazy with. But you know what? I think this application worked out pretty well. It is pretty cool. Let's see it all styled now. So let's load this up. So here it is. Our buttons are looking nice and green. Have a fairly consistent look to them depending on what variety of button I want to use where. And I have a few other features in this application like music theory, so maybe I just want to keep it simple and don't use flats and sharps and minors when quizzing people. I do have that metronome feature as I showed you all, so I can start that metronome. Turn up that beats per minute to 120. There we go. And then I have this experimental mode where I can actually create songs here. So I want to play a C major for a certain amount of beats. So this comes in handy when you want to practice an actual legit song. So here it is. So it's asking me to play the following chord for a certain amount of measures. and I can sing along because I have the lyrics right there. Oops, I played a B instead of an E7. But you get the point. So there it is. You know, maybe this application works for practice. Maybe it doesn't. I need to use it a little more, see how I feel about it. But I do have it online at bsharp.app, just because I wanted to release it. Anyway, this wraps up episode 4 of Web Components in Space. We'll build something cool next time as well. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.